Hi everybody, Tangle the Lemur here, and today I will be reading you all Chapter 2 of The Walking Dead Hope, which is the Walking Dead fanfiction written by Goofy Gomez. Now Goofy Gomez, if you're watching this, we want to thank you very, very much for giving us permission to read your story. Now this story is apparently this was apparently narrated by the Shadow Lioness, which she is concluding this story. And since Rouge already read the first chapter, I thought, what the heck, I'll read the second chapter, because why not? Now, this is apparently a love story between Clementine and Louis. Oh man, do I love love stories? Well, at least once in a while. But anyway, are you ready to get reading? Well, okay, here we go. Will you let me walk by myself, Louis? It was the third time Louis's hand had grazed hers in an attempt to help her up over a fallen trunk. She heard a Sim chuckle from behind them, and she glared in his direction. The man made a motion of zipping his mouth and continued strolling, suddenly very interested in his shoelaces. I'm just worried, it's all. I'm just worried, that's all, Louis said, attempting to keep his distance as per her request. Are you feeling okay? Clem chuckled despite herself and smiled at her husband. Like I told you a half hour ago, I'm fine, she reminded him, patting his shoulder. I'm not letting anything happen to the little guy. Or girl, he added, smiling broadly. You really hung up on that, huh? As Sim said, finally having the courage to speak to them as he caught up. Dude, having a daughter would, make my world, Louis exclaimed, stumbling over his own words. Yeah, but a boy is so much easier to deal with, Sim argued. Look at AJ, for instance. I'll have to give the point to Asim here, Clem put in. Making Louis turn to her and frown. A boy might be a little terror when he's younger, but once a girl gets to puberty, we'll be dealing with her whole other level. Okay, you guys are crazy, the freckled man said, shaking his head. Plus, we weren't that great when we hit puberty, he added, gesturing to Asim and himself. Are you sure you really ever hit puberty? Teased Asim. Both he and Clementine laughed, and Louis rolled his eyes, though he didn't really care. It had been exactly a week since he'd found out he was going to be a father, and his elation had not quite vanished yet. The sun was already at its highest, and the warm feeling of the spring weather was washed over him like a cloth. After a grueling winter they endured, it was a welcome change of pace. As they finally found the wooden fence through which Clementine had crawled a week earlier, Asim lifted a rather heaved-looking board out of the way and let Clementine and Louis through. After a quick scan of the perimeter, Louis held the board high for the other man to crawl through the gap. We really should scour the area a bit more, Asim suggested, looking around. If the convenience store still had stuff in it, who knows what other things we might find? I agreed, said Clem, nodding. I'll go check the rest of the store. I didn't get the chance to sightsee last time, she chuckled. All right, I'll go check the south part of the neighborhood, Louis suggested, running his hands through his hair. Clementine kissed him on the cheek before setting forth into the store ahead of her, rotting carcasses of dead animals lying around decaying corpses. She heard Louis mumble something to Asim as she entered and started walking the aisles, examining the shelves. Most of the stuff she saw were empty containers of various products, long expired or ransacked in the first lootings when the world first went to crap. Birds flew through the cracked windows, perching themselves on the high beams of the store. 20 minutes of useless searching later, she had only found 2 cans of peaches and a half a bag of baby formula. Hope this doesn't go bad before she's born, she muttered to herself, startling when another voice followed hers. So you think it's going to be a girl, huh? Asim said from behind her, deftly catching a bag that fell out of her hands in midair. she swore, slapping him on the shoulder. Scared the crap out of me. Sorry, I was just checking in. Did Louis put you up for this? She asked irritably. Nope, I was just worried as him, he promised, nodding. Besides, we wouldn't want anything happening to Louis Jr. here. Believe me, if it is a boy, we're not calling him Louis Jr., she said. One of him is enough. Amen to that. Chuckling, they kept rummaging through empty boxes, coming up empty most of the time. Once they cleared the store, they left what little supplies they'd found in a box near the entrance, so as not to forget them. As they walked out of the store and toward the broken-down house, Sim sighed. You know, Louis is just looking out for you, right? He said, casting a sideways glance at her. I know, she admitted. A squirrel perched itself on the dumpster, staring at them as they went by. It just gets annoying at times. He knows I can take care of myself, right? Oh, he does, Sim assured her. But I think he's scared. Scared? Why? Well, he's always been pretty terrified of what could happen to you, he explained, frowning. Don't tell him I said that. I won't, don't worry, she said, smiling at him. They entered the house through a huge gaping hole that led to the living room. Planks were scattered around the place, rotten splinters sticking out at odd angles. Clem spotted a teddy bear lying on a moldy mattress in the corner of the room, and a half of children's book, most of its pages scattered on the floor. What I'm saying is, he's now doubly terrified of what would happen to you and the baby, so just cut him some slack. Yeah, I guess I should, she admitted, kneeling beside the mattress and taking the teddy bear. Its left ear had been ripped off, and its synthetic fur was spotted in the mud with mud and grime. She turned it in her hands, imagining a small hands of a baby holding it, chuckling at nothing in particular. Hey, Asm, she asked, suddenly standing up. Yeah? He called out from the kitchen, where he'd been searching. He came out holding 3 cans of beans and almost dropped them when he saw a tear falling from Clem's eyes. Clementine never cried. What is it? What is it? What if I'm a terrible mother? Taken aback by the question, Asm shook his head. He stepped forward, setting the cans of a splintered coffee table, and placed a hand on her shoulder. How can you ask yourself that? Have you seen AJ? That's different, she argued, looking down and fumbled with the teddy bear's ears. Sim took note of it. How so? He inquired, genuinely intrigued. He leaned against the wall and studied her expression. I didn't know what I was doing half of the time, she began. And in his first years, I had a lot of help. Looking up from the first time and locking eyes with Asm. With the seam, forgive me if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, she said, I don't know if this was the best idea. Pursing his lips, Asm sat beside her on the mattress. He looked at the teddy bear in her hands and was reminded of when he had a child. He had been called Fuzzy. His has been called Fuzzy, and he would have him in bed every night. His mother said it was his lucky bear. I don't think you had much choice in the matter, he said slowly, attempting the comedic route that Louis would have taken. These things just happen. It doesn't make it any easier, she said bitterly, placing a hand on her stomach. I traveled with pregnant women before, and it always ends up badly. I don't think you've ever told me about that, Asm said slowly. Rebecca, AJ's mom, she began, closing her eyes. She was in a lot of pain. She got too weak to walk and ended up dying from blood loss shortly after having AJ. I'm really sorry, Clem. Look, I can't say I'm an expert on this stuff, he said, looking sideways at Clem. But you both know you have our full support on anything you might need. Thank you, Wissam. That really means a lot to me. As for your fears as a mother, he added, nodding, I think you should have that kind of conversation with your husband. And this is where I will stop for part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 of Tangle the Lemur reads Chapter 2 of The Walking Dead, Hope.